As the coronavirus pandemic continues to spread across the U.S., a growing number of people are dealing with food insecurity. According to data from the Institute for Policy Research at Northwestern University, 23% of American households reported being food insecure between April and May of this year. Separate research from the nonprofit group Feeding America estimates more than 54 million people may face hunger in 2020. For more on this, I want to bring in Patch editor Kenan Draughorne. Kenan, thank you for joining us. Food insecurity is obviously not a new problem in the United States, but tell our viewers a little bit more about how COVID has really made this issue so much worse.
Yeah, like you said, this has definitely been a big issue here in America for some time, but especially with, the coronavirus and lost wages, higher unemployment, it really kind of shot up. I think Feeding America also said that as many as 17 million more people have been affected this year by food insecurity than last year. So that's kind of why we kind of wanted to do this partnership with Feeding America at Patch, to kind of shine a light on that. One of the stories I was actually able to do, I went to the North Hollywood Food Pantry, and they told me that they had a 43% increase in need since the start of the pandemic. So just kind of talking to, all the people that, especially this year, having trouble finding food and, needed a place to go.
A growing number of children, as you mentioned, are experiencing food insecurity. The nonprofit that you work with, Feeding America, suggests 18 million could be impacted this year. I want you to talk a little bit more in depth about how school closures and state lockdowns have been playing a role in this increase.
Yeah, well, something that's really interesting is we had actually made a lot of progress in terms of addressing food insecurity in children before the pandemic started. I believe that the Department of Agriculture said that we are at our lowest level since 1998 until this pandemic started. But of course, school closures, people not being able to get their lunch at school definitely had a big impact on that. And especially, obviously there's health problems that can kind of happen from not getting healthy food and not having reliable sources of food. But studies have also shown that school performance can suffer, behavioral issues can start. So there are kind of a whole lot of interconnected ways that, children really can suffer from not having that stable food source.
And Kenan, what does the data look like when it's broken down by race? We know that food insecurity is something that can affect everyone in this country, but it's important, particularly as the pandemic has disproportionately affected people of color, to really ask that question about race and how much food insecurity is disproportionately bared by certain groups.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like you said, there's been a whole lot of studies that have shown that, the coronavirus has impacted Black and brown communities at higher rates, than non-communities of color. I think there's a lot of reasons for that, of course, like I said earlier, lost wages, higher unemployment. But I think one of the really interesting things that kind of can be overlooked is food deserts. That's kind of when a community or maybe a household lives over a mile away from a supermarket. So especially if you live far from a grocery store and you don't have a car, like just getting to the store is a whole nother issue. And there's studies that show that, communities that don't have, a good supermarket within close range, people don't eat as healthily. And if they move from that neighborhood into a better neighborhood with more access to food, their body mass index will improve, and just a whole lot of other health issues will get better. So I think that's a really, really important reason why this is happening and what something needs to be addressed.
Well, I like to be solution-oriented whenever it's possible. So, Kenan, I'm hoping you can tell us what are some short and long-term solutions to this issue. How can federal, local government step in to help? But then also, how can all of us contribute?
Yeah, I definitely want to be solution-oriented to kind of fix this. I think in terms of the government response, kind of addressing those food deserts, making sure that those grocery stores are available to all people in America, despite income or whatever it is. I think that's a really, really big part of fixing this issue. In terms of what, other people that aren't in those positions can do, I think volunteering, kind of going back to the food pantry that I talked to, a lot of their volunteers were a lot older and in that higher risk area for COVID. So when the pandemic started, they lost almost all of their volunteers. So they had to get not only feed more people, but they had to find people to distribute that food, So volunteering, if you're able to do that. If you're not able to volunteer, donating food, even just donating money, trying to find maybe a community fridge nearby that needs produce or fruit or whatever that may be. But just trying to keep it very, very local and just look at your own community, because one of the things about this is it's all over America. So probably someone next door, someone, in your area needs your help. So doing whatever you can will go a long way.
All right, Kenan Draughorne, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.